Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Great to have you along. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Karan Kapoor. Karan has got a brilliant business, Vividh Consultancy, which specializes in helping companies foster inclusive and diverse work environments. And we're going to dive right into that. But firstly, Karan, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Yeah, great to have you. And whereabouts are you based?
So I'm based in London, always have been, but yeah, I'm based in London, but I work globally as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful place to be in summertime, London, great town. So yeah,
I mean, we've not had much of a summer this year in 2024, but one day we'll get a good summer.
Please, I'm an Aussie living in Ireland. Yesterday it was a nice day in Ireland, and they said on the radio, Dublin is hotter than Madrid today, which I thought,
wow, that
must
insane.
be. I'd hate to see Madrid.
Unheard of.
Brilliant. So I said that you specialize in helping companies foster inclusive and diverse work environments. I want to have a bit of a chat about the different terms we use. But firstly, can I just get your perspective? Tell us about what the business does and how you help organizations.
Sure. So my business really focuses on the inclusion part of any part of what we do, because I believe personally that inclusion is your foundation and then everything follows beyond that. So for me, inclusion is where this company is bringing the most change towards. So within Vividh, what we do is we talk about how we can foster inclusion so your diversity can flourish. And that's why I've always put diversity after inclusion, because I think that's what it should be. Because if you are inclusive, naturally your diversity will automatically happen because you're an inclusive behavior. We do loads of things such as training, we do keynote speaking, we do strategic planning, we do project work, we do anything that's going to be D&I related to make a difference and a change in any organization that we're working for.
I love it. And you almost described it in terms of a process flow. There's that if we put the inclusion part first, then the diversity should flow from there. And I suspect that that's coming a little bit from your background, where you are not this lifelong D&I or I&D person, right? You come from a different background. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's right. So I've actually started my career off in IT. So that was a really great space for me to be in, because you get to actually see mannerisms and behaviors of where it is quite male dominated when I started my career. And you saw the kind of exclusion behaviors that would happen in that space, such as boys' clubs, bantering, and so forth. Then moving into supply chain, which is also quite a male-dominated space, which again, you see the bantering, you see the kind of the gender biases and everything that you flow within that space. I then walked into HR, which is also a different aspect because it's quite heavily reversed roles. So it's quite heavily in high women roles and so forth rather than men. So that gender bias is definitely there, I think, as well. So then when you're seeing that perspective, it's very different. So when you're then thinking about inclusion and you think about, well, actually, we're looking for the right people for the right job, then that becomes much more apparent than just focusing on just diversity, where you're just trying to tick box numbers to get people in. You then flow in the inclusion part where you get to see how people work well together and then deliver well. And I think basically from my experience from being a portfolio and project manager and program manager and having big teams and big scales of teams reporting into my projects, that's where I saw the beauty. I had so many diverse mindsets on my project teams, yet we were really doing well and delivering well to what we needed to do, because the foundation of inclusion was there and psychological safety as well, to feel like we could share and do things to move things quicker. And I saw that in real lived experience. So I saw the benefits of inclusion just from my project work. And that's where I thought, right, this is where we can make a change in that space.
Nice. So how did you make that transition? Because I know from people in the HR world, and they use HR very broadly, whether that's from start to finish in the employment life cycle, but some people will make that transition not having come from a pure HR or learning and development or something like that background, and they might feel imposter syndrome or scared or something like that. How did you make that transition, and were there any emotions attached to that?
100%. I think it was really interesting actually, because I was very fixated on my career path, as everyone is told to do when they start their career. What's your plan? What's your 10-year plan? Da, 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 da. So that was all there for me. And I was looking at portfolio director, portfolio manager, PMO office. That's where I was looking at to go. However, I then randomly got headhunted by King, so the place where I took the HR role from, the D&I role as a program manager. I thought, okay, the one thing which I have with me is the project management skills and the program management skills. That's the same in any
Mm.
area, no matter what function you're looking after, that's the basics. That was an easier transition. However, the topics were very, very complicated for me because I never had those type of topics before. Normally, it's about we need to get a product out. How do we get the product out? This is about people's feelings, emotions, and behaviors and so forth, which I didn't have it. There's no degree book on it, or there's no exercise book where you can read through and say, okay, this is what you need to do. I had a really great, firstly, the person that hired me to the King role, she managed to change my perspective and my kind of my mindset and what my future thinking should look like. She hired me, but unfortunately, I never got to work with her. But my manager in that space in King really taught me the benefits of being your authentic self. And she showed me so many different skills that I was like, oh, actually, this is the benefit of learning of how you can become more inclusive. So as she was teaching me, as I think I was doing the other stuff, I learned from her, plus the amazing people I was working with at the time. They were giving me information which I've never been part of or being part of the diverse buckets that they were part of. I just learned and absorbed loads of stuff. And I thought, oh, this is insane and amazing that you can make a difference in people's lives by the way they feel. I think that's where it was. But for sure, imposter syndrome was 101 because I was walking into a space where I had no clue of like HR policies, anything HR related, legality, HRBP. I had no idea what any of these people did. I had no clue. So I'm walking in thinking, okay, what is your role? I have no idea. Whilst in other positions, I had a clue because you've
Yeah,
got a
yeah,
supply chain manager, then you've got an IT manager, then you've got like a Salesforce. You just knew what was
yeah.
happening. But in HR, I had no clue. So massive imposter syndrome. But thankfully, everyone was really forgiving and really great at teaching me. I think then from that transition, I then went to Nomad Foods, where I then learned more. I had an amazing manager for my IT field. He was just absolutely amazing and gave me the great freedom of what I wanted to do and achieve. Plus, I had another amazing human being that I met who's my life coach now, I think, in general life. But she taught me so much about HR and how it works and how the kind of like the connections work. Not even political drama, I wouldn't say that. She taught me like how to connect the dots better. And I learned that from my manager from the IT world, plus from her from the HR side. So yeah, I think that's what helped me gain more confidence in
Mm.
myself. And then I went to British American Tobacco, where then I had to do more global reach stuff. And then I was like, right, I've got this, and I know what I can do, how I can do it.
It's funny you mentioned a mentor. I had a mentor for a long time, but earlier in my career, and I was given an assignment to set up, I think it was workplace harassment training. And I remember this mentor at the time saying, look, Ben, yes, you could just make it workplace harassment so we can tick that box, check that box to say, yes, we have made sure that people will not be harassed at work because that's bad. Or we could make it better and work out, well, how do we, and it was almost inclusion, but it was pre, I guess, that term being used, but how do we get the best out of people and make
Yeah.
sure we avoid groupthink and look at different viewpoints to create better products, better service, to handle customer service, all those sort of things. And all of that contributed. So I think having A, that mentor, and then B, having that more positive approach to it really pays off.
How was your experience with the mentor as well? Like, I think it's a great thing, right? Because you get to learn different skills, plus you get to see like a different world to what your brain is triggered to show. You're seeing a different lens, and I feel like they really show that lens really well. And if you get a great mentor, then they really help guide
Oh,
you
yeah,
on what your possibility can lead into.
definitely. So you described your path and then how you learnt and grew in the role. What about the leap into setting up your own business? Can you tell us about that?
So I've always thought I was going to have my own business in some way or form. So I've always had that bug that I want my own business. I think what I started to realize was I was working in spaces where they weren't so inclusive for myself and how I was working with. Because I felt so excluded at that point, I was like, there must be a space where I can make inclusion the forefront of everyone's mindset. That really pushed me forward. Like I wasn't thinking of doing it this early, to be honest with you. I wanted a bit more
Hmm.
contact and a bit more agreement and stuff like that. But actually, there's something there that's not allowing me to make people feel excluded. So what can I do in a bigger scale, and what can I do to reach more people to make these behaviors demolish, basically, to make inclusion like their forefront? So I thought, let's try it, see what happens. I started it last year. I started it part-time. So I didn't fall off the jump straight away. I was like, okay, let's just go a little bit at the time. Let's just dip our toes in the water. I'll see if I like it. I fell in love with it. I had great clients last year. I managed to sign up with a few great clients and I thought, okay, this works, great feedback. So my imposter syndrome, which still carried on going,
Yeah.
started to reduce because I was getting great compliments saying, oh, you're amazing, your energy is great, or what you're showing is great, what you talk about is great, how you support us is great. So I was like, oh, this might be a space for me to do something. And now I thought, okay, we might as well see now I've leaped into it. Let's now just go fully depth into it. So April this year, I thought, okay, full time, let's go. Let's see what happens. I think everyone says that owning a business is super easy and it's fun. It really is not. Or at times.
Yeah, it's roller coaster. How did you get those first clients? Because they don't exist when you start. How'd you do that?
Yeah. You know what? Contacts and network. That is the only way I've got majority of my clients is through networking. And it's not through new networking, it's actually through existing work. So looking back at my network list, saying, look, I'm starting something new. I'd love to just have a chat. I think that's how it worked really well for me, especially. And because people saw my work beforehand and saw how I work, they wanted to work with me again. So I think that helped bring people in. And then obviously you've got your friends and family that are supporting you and then bringing you and inviting you into places and so forth, which helps massively too. So I think for me, it's always been about networks that have connected me to where I've got to. Even the work I'm getting now is all through network.
Yeah.
Cold calling doesn't work for me for some reason.
It's funny, I work with a lot of consulting firms, a lot of HR tech firms, and across the board, even the technology firms, it always starts out with network and
Yeah.
referrals. And people think, oh, a technology company, they think of Facebook with banner ads and
Yeah.
sponsoring Super Bowls or whatever. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's always starts with those networks and referrals and connecting with people. So I'm glad you recognize that and built on that and sort of leveraged that. Over time, it does expand. That's when you see thought leadership and people who are prominent on LinkedIn or giving
Yeah.
speeches. You're adding new channels, but I agree that it always starts with there. And I think the difference from my perspective is that it's having a bit of a plan and working that planning and just keeping consistent.
That's the biggest thing we just
Mm.
said, consistency. I think because it gets quite boring if you're not a salesperson
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah,
I've never done like sales in that space.
yeah,
So for someone like me that's always like been on the go, always been working constantly, has a calendar busy constantly, like go,
yeah,
go, 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 deliver, deliver, deliver. And then when you've had now to pause and then now think, okay, now I need to find things to deliver.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
a different world and a different experience for those people. So I definitely found it really boring for the first 2 months. I was like, what the hell? I can't keep doing this. This is like
yeah,
super boring for me. But actually, the more and more I started networking within my network, and then my network was expanding my network and stuff, then I found the fun and I found kind of my niche in that space. And I was like, oh, actually, no, I can do this. This is
yeah,
the fun part. Cold calling, LinkedIn messaging random people, and it's not
yeah, yeah.
working for me either, so I've stopped it. But for me, it's just like people connect me to other people, and that's how it seems to work more successfully. So that's why I'm feeling it much more impactful.
Brilliant. And over time, if you were to look at other marketing channels, getting the word out, what would you do to do that?
You know what? I'm still trying to figure it out myself, to be honest with you. I'm trying to work out new marketing channels as we talk. Because I think when I first walked into this, I'll openly say this, when I first walked into this, I was like, right, how can I get my name out there? What can I do? What people can I sponsor? What can I do? How many talks can I do? What pro bono work can I do? That is exactly what I
Nice.
thought. Get my name out, get my name
Mm.
out. I think what I would have done a little bit different to my mindset, which I think wrongfully and rightfully was happening. I think I would have taken a bit more of a calmer approach and actually had a bit more of a stronger strategy and
Mm.
me being a strategic. But for me, I was a bit more fluid with my strategy and I was like, okay, we're just going to see what's working, what's not. And it has worked in some stage with me, and obviously it still has to continue to
Evolve. Yeah, yeah,
work and evolve. But I think I would have preferred to do a little bit of the marketing side of myself at the start.
yeah,
I've started to do my marketing side now. So now people have connected with me. I'm now marketing myself more. But
yeah,
actually, I wish I had started that
yeah.
early on.
That's great advice for people hearing this for the first time. Because even if, let's say you set up business and then on day one, someone says, wow, that's amazing. Can we talk? Cool, let's talk. Love to pitch you my pitch, but let's talk about my services.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, great. But I'm on vacation. I'm on holidays for 2 weeks. So can we do it in 2 weeks? Okay, cool. And then they have to reschedule because the boss has booked another meeting. So then now it's another 3 days later. And
Yeah.
then you have, oh, that's great. Can I get the rest of my team in? Because I want them to meet you too. So there's another 2 weeks. So we're pushing time out. And then you do all the work.
Yeah.
And in many cases, which is probably the wrong way to do it, then at the end of it, that's when you send the bill. By the way, send the bill at the start, by the way, for listeners.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's the one lesson I've learned massively. I definitely agree with that.
And do milestone payments. But then the point is that you only then get paid. And then even then, I always say Marion Accounts forgets to pay it. And so suddenly there's a delay because it's next pay run and stuff. So I love what you said there. Get marketing, get the word out there either before you start or as soon as you can. And then that just takes some of the pressure off a bit. But you also, here you are doing a podcast, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly,
there's
exactly.
a
And I
channel.
did my own podcast as well, but I wish I had done that right at the start because I
Yeah,
think
right.
then people would have known who I was, and then connecting with them would have been a lot more easier. So then that
Smart.
kind of that spark happens quite naturally, but it's okay. We try a different route. We trial and error. I'm no expert. I don't think anyone's a massive expert in starting a new business. I think
No,
everyone's
no, no.
got triumphs and turmoils.
To make you feel better, I met my first ever client almost bumping into them on a footpath on the sidewalk. This guy walked past. I went, "Oh, I went to your talk the other night." He was giving some business startup
Right.
meeting thing for the local government. I said, "Thanks very much. That was a great session." And then he said, "Oh, cool. What are you starting? An HR business?" "Oh, this lady here needs an HR person." So randomly meeting him on the
Oh,
street.
wow.
Worst strategy ever, by the way. So if I switch gears, then starting out, people struggle to think, what am I going to offer? Because I've had this career, done all this stuff. How do I actually package offer something that people understand rather than just saying consulting? Because consulting, how long is a piece of string? So what are your thoughts on how you structure or make your offering known and understood?
I think like you have to be super clear. And I've always been a person of the power of three. Like I've always believed in power of three. So
Mm.
I think like having three things to start off with, and then you can build up as much as you want, but be really clear of what are your three things you're offering. So just like I said at the start, right, I offer strategic planning, which includes like project management, and that goes in detail, but then I can expand it. But strategic planning is one, training is the other, and keynote speaking is the other. That's three things I'm offering straight away. So straight away when I talk about Vividh, you know now there's three things this guy potentially can come over and offer me something. When I spark that curiosity of what it is, then you go in deeper of I can give you this, I can give you this, I can give you that. What I think is really important is that you, as any consultancy business, that you're listening into what someone's asking you to do. But then obviously from those three things or those three buckets that you're really strong in, that's the services you should provide back. And you should be advising the client, this is what I think you need. So I think that is one thing which I would say for anyone starting their organization is that they need to be crystal clear on their objective of what you're trying to achieve. And then from that, what are your three services you can provide them? One service is great, obviously, but one service is not going to materialize so much in the long run. It
Yeah.
will develop further and you'll get bigger and bigger, of course, if you're lucky enough. But I would say start with three because you might find something's much more stronger than the one service you think you're offering. And that other service that you've given in your three might become the strongest one. And then that becomes your main seller, and the other two become your bypass sellers. So for me, and that's exactly what's happening, I'm seeing the strategy one and the training one is kind of like training's a little bit higher than the strategy one at the moment, if I'm being
Mhm.
honest. People are really loving the way I deliver and train people. That's becoming my strong point now. So my strategy one's there, but it's the second one. So I provide training first, then secondary, they come and ask me for strategy. Then they're like, oh, we've got this event, we want you to talk to it. And then the keynote speaking happens.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how I'm seeing the kind of thing work for me. And I think that's how it might work for others as well. So having like a 3 point selling point, whatever you want to call it, that would work really well.
That's smart, yeah. And I've done it to death, but the example I always give is when I was asked to set up an employee handbook for a business. And then at the end of that, I then said, well, you'll need to get everyone to read it and understand it and sign it. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know. So I'll tell you what, I'll get your workforce in groups of, say, 5 or 6 or something. I'll talk them through it, explain it, and then they can sign it. And so they set me in groups of them. So that now it's a separate piece of work. And at the end of that, I've met the entire workforce, including managers, supervisors, everyone. So I go back to the business CEO and say, guess what? I've just met with everyone. And you know what happens when you get an HR guy in there? They'll tell you stuff. So now I've heard all the gripes. Would you like me to help you set up a strategy? Like you
Yeah.
just described. So it wasn't training, but it was something else that then feeds into the strategy and then keynote. So yeah, that's really great advice, that rule of three that you've got in the different product range or service range.
Sure. And then like I also believe to be more successful as well is being quite open to work with others around you because hopefully as anyone gets bigger, you need more support and help. But
Yeah.
actually there's some consultants that do exactly what I do. There's so many of them out there that if I can partner with someone to support me in something, because I'm helping them with their business and I'm helping me with my business. So not only am I looking stronger, I'm making someone else look really strong as well. So you're
Mm.
bringing people on the journey with you rather than blocking it. So I'm doing that quite often. Wherever I get the opportunity to partner with someone and advise how can I bring someone with me, I do it. It's really great to bring someone with you to help.
Yeah. That's a real abundance mindset, and the whole a rising tide lifts all boats. So that's a
Yeah.
fabulous approach. A couple of last questions then is, what's your advice to people in either preparing to start or in the early stages of launching an HR related business?
One thing I would definitely say is don't think about spending money straight away. So don't think about spending all the cash on your marketing because, like I said, I wish I did self-promotion at the start because
Mm.
actually that was free for me. I didn't have to
Yeah,
pay anything. That's
yeah.
me just talking about myself and talking about my experiences and talking about my business. So I wish I did a lot more of that at the start because I think that's quite good. I think any entrepreneur when they start up is so vulnerable at the start because you're looking for money, you're looking
Mm.
for business, you're looking for something to validate what you're trying to do, that you kind of feel like, oh, maybe if I do this, it will happen, or maybe if I do that, that will happen. So really stop, put your blinders on, actually. Don't let everything come and attack you. Be really clear of what you want to achieve and how you achieve it.
Yeah.
Then the third thing I would say is having a plan with your marketing and what is it that you want to achieve, because actually as you get more business in, you could probably add more money into your marketing tools, but what is it that you want to achieve for your business? Because I'm not going to be someone that wants to be on billboards. So for me then to go on billboards doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
because what am I going to gain from going on a billboard? Nothing. I'm not selling anyone. I'm selling myself as a product to sell a service. So you need to think mindfully of like what is it you're trying to deliver and how you're trying to sell it. I think that was the three things I would
That's
say.
brilliant advice. Really good advice. Thank you for that. And then lastly, for people listening to this and they're thinking, oh, I wonder if Karan could help this company. Who is the ideal company in terms of the services you provide and then how you can help them or what challenges the companies might have? What would bring Vivid to life for them in terms of maybe a referral?
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about what I do is I'm not limited to industries. So I'm into any organization that wants to talk to me. Any organization can talk to me because everyone has people working for them. And that's what I'm all about. It's about inclusion and people are part of the inclusion and the culture. So that's one great thing about me is that anyone can talk to me, any level as well, because you don't know who's going to be able to connect you to who and bring you onto that forefront. The thing which I would always say is if you want to make inclusion change and impactful and you want to really look at the company and how to push it forward to be more inclusive, that's where Vividh can definitely step in and help. Because I know the stuff which I can bring onto the table is something that's going to be changing and is something that's not such bog standard and kind of been sold to for so many years. And we've seen in so many news articles, right, diversity and inclusion is starting to feel like the boring topic. It's not moving the needle as much, I would say, unfortunately. And like people are feeling the fatigue. So D&I fatigue is settling in massively. But we need to go past that D&I fatigue because inclusion is not a fatigue, it's a
Mm.
thing that needs to happen. And it's the only thing that's going to make your business even more successful than what it is if more people are more inclusive. So I think that's where I would say Vivid really brings that forefront into it.
And last one, if I can finish on a controversial question. SHRM, the HR organization in the US, I think they recently took out the E, equity, from diversity,
Yeah.
inclusion, and equity. What are your thoughts on that?
I personally think we're adding too many acronyms in D&I and DEIB, and I think it's too much. I think people are also getting a bit confused because when I speak to people that are not in the D&I space, and as professionals in D&I, right, we're very knowledgeable about
Yeah. We know
DEIB.
what the acronyms
We
are.
know
Yeah.
what the acronyms are,
Yeah.
but actually, people that are not in it every single day and don't know what it is, it's just extra words, which is going to be quite forgetful for them. So actually, equity is something which happens through inclusion. So if you're inclusive, equitable workforces should happen automatically because you're
Right.
an inclusive organization, so you're going to be equitable no matter what. So having the equitable thing in a DEIB, whatever, doesn't add any value because actually you're inclusive. So inclusion is where equity is going to build. Of course, you need to understand how equity builds further from inclusion, and then you get your policies and everything into place to make it work more effectively. But calling out, I don't see the benefit of doing it so
Mm.
much as well as belonging. Now, to feel like you belong somewhere, you feel like you're included. And then when we look at diversity, diversity is something that will naturally happen. If it
Mm.
flourishes well, you'll get a better product. But if you're not inclusive, your diversity is not going to work and you're going to be
Yeah.
unsuccessful. Then proving the point of why do I need diversity? Because you're not inclusive. So then it goes in the fatigue, which I just talked about the D&I fatigue. People are seeing the fatigue because they're so fixated on metrics and numbers and diversity hiring and tick box exercising. Everyone is forgetting the main important part, which is inclusion. And that's where I feel, even when I do this to any client I speak with, I'm always saying to them, can we start with inclusion first? So if you're talking about D&I, say I and D, because it's inclusion and diversity, because actually you're starting with inclusion, then your diversity flows straight after. But yeah, that's
Makes
my
sense.
opinion on it.
Karan, you shared so much great insight and advice, so thank you very much for that. If people want to learn more about you or about Vividh, what should they do next?
Connect with me. I love talking to people. Add me on LinkedIn. Anyone that wants to speak to me, please speak with me. I'm more than happy just to even have a conversation. It doesn't need to be business related. It can just be a conversation.
Can you call out the website as well?
Yes, it's www.vividh.co.uk. It means diversity in Hindi, Vividh. So
Brilliant. Got it.
that's why it's called Vividh.
That's the connection. I love it. Oh, that's nice. Well, thank you very much for sharing. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you all the very best with the business.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.